Here.
Here.
Yes, thank you. Let me say that this has been a voluminous task, trying to put all this together. I think you have in your hands a copy of what we've done. I do want to thank Joe. Joe did a lot of work on this document. The previous document, of course, was a lot of redlining. And of course, what we've tried to do is to incorporate some of the things that we talked about at our last meeting and some of the things that he sort of indicated in the document we have before us. So I want us to sort of go through this, Pam, Ashley. If you all would, we've had an opportunity to talk and want to do some collaborative conversation now about the document itself. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, Councilman McDowell, and Dr. Bussells for being here today. So as you all know, we have quite a few boards and commissions. We have 6 council standing committees, 9 special committees, task force commissions, 5 land use boards, and 31 external boards and commissions. So we've got a lot of activity going on when it comes to boards and commissions. So as Reverend McDowell stated, one of the tasks was to update the Boards and Commission handbook to include some of the things, the items that this committee has discussed before with Councilman Taylor, Dr. Bussells, and Reverend McDowell. So we made an attempt to revise the handbook. And we also have a few items that are listed in some of the minutes that we'll want to also kind of talk about as we complete this discussion. So what's probably going to be easiest is to look at the actual Boards and Commission handbook that we've provided to you all. We try to send it to you in advance so you can kind of look at it. There's a table of index that's on the first front page, and then it goes into all of the different list of contents or areas. So we start with an introduction, basic introduction, just to kind of outline what the boards and commissions all about. The next page, page 3, has a listing of all those boards and commissions, just kind of an overview. Those that are advisory, have community impact, funding, intergovernmental, and land use.
I don't know what the final print's going to be, but I would hope that we could have like the skyline of the city or
Sure.
city hall background, is what's in the back of this, you know, so it's truly a Columbia piece.
Sure.
And then, would it be beneficial if we had something in the beginning of it, like a page about what our priorities and everything is, so that people know, you know, I'm not saying, let's don't put the history, but kind of a snapshot of our goals and things so that people understand where we're trying to head as they get involved, so that they're on the same page as we are.
Certainly, we can definitely include that. We
I know
would
we
want,
haven't done that traditionally because it's been pretty vanilla, you know, for lack of a better term. But it would be really great, I think, because I think people then would understand as they sign up and they, you know, when you go to sign that oath and you've read this handbook and you've gone through it and you see what we're trying to do about how we're trying to improve Columbia, we want them to get on the train.
sure, and we will definitely be reaching out for any suggestions of things to put, but we'll draft something for you all to review.
I think the 4 points that the mayor raised has some, it becomes our document. And it's not that somebody else can't use some of it, but it becomes our document. So the background of the city, a picture of that, I think sort of lends direct.
Throwing a pen at me or something.
That gives us direct ownership of the document itself. Yes, sir.
Absolutely, I think that's a
So,
great
Mr. Mayor,
idea.
what we can do is, once we get to, say, perhaps the finish line, we incorporate that into this document.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that, and I don't know if the intent is to do it as well, but, going through it, we put a lot around the rules, but we really didn't talk about the committees. The description, their function, their role, what there's, how that committee is made up, because we have a lot of restrictions on some of them, certain positions. Should we include that in the handbook so people clearly know, hey, we have to have a historian for this, or we have to have a lawyer for this, or, adding that to that, almost a description page for each, I know it's a lot, but for each one, so people understand the makeup. BPAC is made up of X amount, but it doesn't limit people from outside the city on BPAC. Just letting people know the makeup. And then the only other thing I saw in there that is we left planning commission off under land uses.
Did we leave that off?
It dropped down, so we'll add that definitely. When we were trying to get everything fitting on a page, so that was definitely an oversight, so we'll add that. Certainly, we can certainly add that information. We were trying to, a lot of that information is provided by the actual boards and commissions when they go through their orientations of the new members. And so we didn't put that in this particular document. But we certainly can,
If you
look
had
at
just a
doing
small
that.
description.
Sure.
That people, because some people may ask for this before they make their final decision. A lot of people will sign up for something, and then all of a sudden, when they realize what's truly involved, especially since I think y'all made a great effort to talk about attendance requirements, conflicts, 50%. I think this lays it out really well, so it's clear. So I think understanding what you're committing to and the rules around it all in one document would be nice. My thoughts.
The only thing I was going to add was, in addition to some of the changes that Mayor's mentioned, I can't recall what we decided on folks kind of signing that they've read this. And that was something I know Councilman Taylor and I were very much pushing, that, that is your kind of signed oath that you will agree to these terms. So I would like for us to consider putting, a detachable sheet or a fillable thing at the end that says, I have read the requirements of being on this board or commission.
You're acknowledging that you read it and you agree to the terms.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, and we definitely did talk about that and kind of went back and forth about that, so we will put that in.
And yeah, absolutely. Remember, at our last meeting, we talked about that and the significance of that, because heretofore, we just had a document that did not have that signage sheet attached to it.
Yes.
So that gives us some segue into making this document real. I'm sorry, Pam.
Absolutely. Those are great points, so we'll add those things in there. So we had a, simple listing. We'll add additional information that talks about the boards and commissions, kind of a little snippet about that and some of the requirements for some of the appointees. We had a message from council on 4. We have on 5, you all listed as council members. 6 was a page that we kind of talked about in the committee about the residency requirements. You all had discussed a desire that the members on the boards and commissions were residents of the city, and so we put that language in here. We did add a caveat, just in case for some odd reason, there's some law that requires
Some statute.
exactly that person to be outside of city limits, then we'd have that provision in there. So we did add that language.
One of the things that sort of as we looked at applications, folk would live somewhere else, but they worked in the city, and they used the city address as that anchoring point. And I think this sort of gives us an anchor in terms of where we are when we start talking about persons applying for the various boards and commissions.
Yes, sir, it certainly does. I mean, I think in the past, the thought was, maybe that, so for some of the boards and commissions, there are some really specific requirements, like you're an architectural engineer, or you have some specific requirements. And I think previous councils were having some difficulty finding candidates that were city residents, and so I think that was the thought process for expanding that. So just a little note, just to keep that in mind, that, you all may want to think about that in terms of,
Yeah, but I also think with Matchboard and some of the new kind of things that we've pushed forward in the process should hopefully increase exposure. So many people just didn't know about the boards and commissions, so I like that we're keeping that you should reside within the city, because city residents aren't allowed to serve on county boards and commissions, so.
absolutely, so we're good
And then
with
it
that.
sort of strengthens that whole notion that the mayor just mentioned, providing that little snippet about, if this is the board, what's a little snippet, 1 or 2 sentences to say exactly what that is? Not the involvement, because that would be too voluminous,
Right.
but I think that would help us in our process, I think.
Absolutely. So the next thing that we kind of went into, and Mr. Taylor and Dr. Bussells and Reverend McDowell were very helpful in the application process. On page 7, like Dr. Bussells stated about Matchboard, we were trying to really have a streamlined approach to the posting of the vacancies and then people applying. So we try to do that in an odd and even month process. We've been doing that since last year, and Councilman Taylor was instrumental in suggesting that. We certainly, it's helpful for us to know which ones are gonna be posted and then which applications we're looking for, so we can compile those for you all, or you can look in Matchboard to see which ones are out there. We certainly, we think that that's working fine. We definitely haven't heard anything from you all that that's not. So that's what we went through with the process. The application process was kind of identifying that it's odd even, where we have the vacancies posted, how that screening takes place, and how you all are given access to the applications. We do know that some council members want printed copies, and so we certainly are up for that if that's what people want. Matchboard is a very easy-to-use, intuitive software, but, we understand that people like things in different ways. So we certainly can provide copies if your colleagues or you all want those copies as well.
Pam, let me ask Ashley a question. Ashley, the 30-day time parameter, did we leave that as is? Wasn't there some variance in that 30 days?
It was just that we were gonna focus on even and odd months, so on odd months, we would advertise. It was just that we would, alternate between even and odd months, so on odd months, we would advertise, the vacancies for a full 30 days, and then on even months, we would appoint, those appointments that had just been advertised, so the only variance would be if you all decided that you wanted to advertise a board for a longer period, or if you all decided to defer, of course, it's up to you all. But there were no variances in that was part of developing the consistency in the schedule, so that's worked really well.
Well, when someone may ask the question, of course, for an example, someone has applied for something, and because we are in the working mode now in terms of perfecting this document, does that mean that if they applied 30 days ago, do they reapply?
So I see what you're saying. Administrative Policy Committee decided or mentioned at the last meeting that instead of, to keep the application process fresh and to ensure that we aren't reappointing people that were previously declined, we're asking that they apply within the 30 days. So some of the older applications that may have been from even February or March of last year, if something was deferred, we've reached out to them. We let them know that the process has changed and that we will reach out to them again when it's time for them to apply for the new application period, if they're interested. I mean, that's for the people that weren't declined.
And we certainly have a schedule for those appointments, but if for some reason, you know, a committee doesn't have enough people so that they can't function properly, then you all, we can add them to be appointed kind of off schedule. But we think that this process is working pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was working pretty well.
And there's a way to track the 2 consecutive terms in Matchboard, right? It's not something that you'll have to do manually. Because even the one about if someone fills an unexpired term, then, you know, they still get 2 consecutive terms. I just don't want us to lose that in, you know, this going to somebody else, the management of boards and commissions, like making it as automated as possible.
So Matchboard has a function, so all of the terms are listed. When they expire, it even sends reminders. And it does really well about showing the history of the appointment, when things were sent out. So I'm sure that function is incorporated and
Okay,
makes it
perfect.
easier.
And we were able to add in people, obviously, that came before Matchboard, and we're now tracking.
We were. That was actually a part of the initial process when Erica introduced the platform and when we were working with the program administrator. We input all the old information, you know, basically took our paper files and made them electronic. So.
Okay,
Well,
perfect.
the historical significance is that that's valuable information, I think. Especially when you look at a position and you look back on the history in terms of who has held that position, how long, da-da-da-da-da. It gives us that kind of history and that kind of input. So thank you for doing that, Ashley.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
And then for the terms of office, have we notified folks that are non-voting and ex officio that they're no longer allowed?
We have not at this time. We were waiting for this meeting to.
Exactly. And that's a perfect segue, Dr. Bussells, into that discussion, because that is one of the things that we have not done. And
I think that was pretty
Yeah.
much unanimous between the 3 of us that we wanted to
we want to make
move away from extra people that are not actually part of the process.
I never understood why we put non-voting people on a committee.
I remember CPAC, they requested a restructure with the former council, and it was essentially to ensure that they had people in the pipeline or maybe even give a place for volunteers that were helping with CPAC at the time. They presented it, they submitted it to legal, it was approved. So that's how they were enacted, the non-voting. And the ex officio members, I know you all have discussed, you know, some of the members have just been around and kept around for historical knowledge and context.
Well, I
Or
think that
friendship.
was CPAC, was it hospitality?
Yeah, it was hospitality.
Hospitality also. What else? There was another,
There's one more.
was it
Yeah.
was it what now?
Lake Murray.
So that is something that we will have to do if you all, and I guess we should say this as well. This is a document that you all have as a committee. This is not something that we have shared with the entire council.
Correct.
So of course, we want to make sure that you all are comfortable and then have the opportunity to share it with the entire council so that, you know, they are all on the same page as well with your recommendations for, you know, the non-voting, the ex officio, the committees not being more than 11 members, you know, all of the things that we are talking about, because it will impact some of the current boards and commissions that we have in place.
Well, the vision of the committee, of course, is to do exactly what we're doing now. And that's eventually, hopefully, not a year takes place, that we can eventually perfect this document, carry it to council, send it to council, and of course, have it approved at a council meeting. Is that,
Exactly, that is the plan.
okay. So the fruit or the low-hanging fruit that we have listed here, other than when we get through it, this, what we're doing here today, coming back together, of course, identifying those areas that we need to be in, that's included in this document, and moving forward beyond that.
Yes, sir.
Is that where we are, Dr. Bussells?
Yeah, I think most of the
Mayor?
changes that we've suggested are pretty minor. So I would suggest, Councilman McDowell, that they make those changes, some of the aesthetic changes, and some of the clarifications. And we look at it via email or, one more time in between a council meeting. And I think that we should go ahead and share it with council. I'd like to start this year with a clean slate with some of these
Okay.
things if possible.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do you think that's feasible?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe like the second meeting in February would give us enough time to get it to council. Okay.
It should. Mm-hmm.
But some of the things are very minor, and of course, adding in those things that the mayor has suggested, in addition to elongating some of the framework of the document, could move us rather quickly into approving the document itself. I would envision us working through those things, coming back together as a committee, finalizing the perfected document, and then carrying it to council. What do you think? What do you think?
I think we're pretty close. I think we're pretty close to the finishing, so.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Benjamin.
No, that's good. Very good discussion. So we have attendance requirements listed. That was really important to talk about. Making sure people were showing up for the meetings, not there just in name, but actually participating. And of course, have a process in which people are notified that they're no longer, that they've been, I don't want to say terminated, but I guess for lack of a better word, they've been
terminated.
let go from the.
They've been relieved from their
they've been
committee,
relieved of their
committee
duties.
duties.
So we do have a section on the automatic terminations, the failure to take the oath within 30 days, failure to meet your eligibility requirements, and that's on page 11. Absence of 2 consecutive meetings without notice. Absence from 50% of the regular meetings in a 6-month period. And then a non-filing of required statement of potential conflicts of interest. So that's there.
Pam, didn't we decrease, it was, I think traditionally, historically, it was 3 days, we cut it down to 2 days, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We do have some information about a resignation process, the oath of office, conflicts of interest prohibited on page 12 for you all. That just brief statements about that from the prior handbook. Information about the Freedom of Information Act on page 13, and then a little code of conduct on page 14. And we certainly can add anything to that you all would like us to. And then the last page, page 15, was the page before Ashley's contact information is about the State Ethics Act. So we have information about that as well. One of the things that we had, I'm sorry, before I move forward, does anybody have any questions, comments about any of that? So one of the points of discussion we had is about some of the rotation of council and then some of the sunsetting. So if we're done with this, we'll update it, like Reverend McDowell said, we'll update it, we'll get that ready. Dr. Bussells will have that February with the backdrop for the city, the goals, some more information about that, a place to acknowledge acceptance of the handbook, so we'll have that. But we did want to go back and revisit some of the topics we covered in the committee meeting in November, real quick, just so we can get clarification. So do you all have those minutes? Miss Erica, did I take them? I did, I took them.
So if I recall, this was the discussion about the intergovernmental, mostly, and how to allow everybody on council an opportunity to represent the city, we should have some sort of rotation for things like, the Central Midlands Transit Authority and the COG and things like that.
Right, exactly, Dr. Bustle. So on page 2, number 8 and 9, those were some discussion points that we had on those subjects. And so we wanted to just revisit that.
So on this, just so I wasn't part of that discussion, so the idea was that y'all are going to put these two, just merge these two boards on item 1? Did I?
Oh, yes, sir. So we can go through start at item 1, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
Yes.
wasn't up to date on this.
So these are some things that as we were going through to prepare for this meeting, we wanted to make sure we brought these things back to your attention. We certainly can discuss them, and then you all can think about them, and we can finalize them on the next meeting, but we wanted to make sure that we didn't lose these items for discussion. So, number 1, and we did check with legal about some of these things as well, just to make sure we weren't getting in any trouble with any of them. And we wanted you all to kind of chime in on them before we really got staff deeply engaged in it, because I'm glad Krista's here with that number 1, to appoint the same people to serve on the members on the Building Board of Adjustments and Appeals and the Property Maintenance Board of Appeals. There were no legal restrictions, but that's something that was proposed by the committee prior, and then to rename it, like I said, the Appeals Board. So,
I'm still good with that.
The short-term rentals, number 6, I know there was a push to try to get a draft on next week's agenda. I think is premature at this point.
so we did have a
Based on
discussion
our
about
last
that.
work session.
We did have a discussion about that in our agenda review, the sunset of the short-term rentals.
By April, that gives us a little more time, though.
What we're trying to, Mr. Ball had mentioned he wanted to try to put the short-term rental on our agenda for the 7th, which I don't think we've all seen the final draft based on our work session. Just going along with what the committee had talked about, it's supposed to sunset and supposed to deliver us a report by March. Is that still the case, or is there a shift, or?
We're trying to work through all that. So we haven't seen a new
I hadn't either.
version of it either.
So, is it?
We were about to call him to see after this, to see,
I don't know that we're ready for that.
I mean, if it does get put on, I'm just gonna motion to defer, so.
However
Yeah.
y'all need to handle it. Okay.
But is the April deadline still
Still.
okay?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah,
I think so. My only thing is not sure how it is. Is he trying to, is this a fast tracking deal or what? And I don't think it can be fast tracked. Is this? Would you please? I think that was the impression that I got at last council meeting was that it was being fast-tracked. And I don't know if fast-tracking is the right thing to do at this point. I think whether it's, and it'd be good to see what Howard says about this. I'm sure he wants to do it quickly, but being quick is not really the best objective at this point. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. All right. Ms. Benjamin?
So,
The mayor jumped us down to
Go-
6, and we
yes.
were on 1, so we're at 2 now.
yeah, so, eliminating the Board of Zoning Appeals form-based codes. We'll have to talk to staff about that one, but that's certainly one that was, Mr. Taylor had recommended that.
Krista, how does that play into the scheme of this conversation?
That is a part of the development agreement that you have with the Hughes Development Corporation. So to achieve that goal, you would have to amend your development agreement.
So we would certainly want to know whether or not that's worth the effort, or would you all like to leave that in place?
Just to provide additional information, you know, that is revisited every 5 years. I think we're 2 years into it now, probably maybe about 2.5 years more left to go on it. We wholeheartedly support that. They've never met, but you still do need to amend that development agreement.
So just for, we'll need a, decision point on that, if you all want us to proceed with eliminating that, or if you want us to,
Well, does it sunset
3 years?
in 2.5 years anyway? So, I mean,
Necessarily, you will have to take it out of the development agreement that it's required, but yes, I mean, at that point in time, when we rewrite it, we could take it out.
does that make more sense than?
That's what I think we should
midstream?
do. I mean, they haven't met, so.
It's not like there's some big pressing issues or anything, right?
We do our best to not make them meet.
Yeah, I think it was just more so to clean up. We had so many boards and commissions that I think it's good to move forward with getting it out of the development agreement. What do you think? Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Think
add
so.
that. We'll put that on the calendar and a
Would you
tickler.
please?
Yes, sir, for us to be aware that needs to come out. There was a suggestion to change the name of the Columbia Tree and Appearance Commission to the Appearance Commission. Again, that would require an ordinance change to do that. That was a recommendation that, Mr. Taylor made. I don't know if you all want.
The majority of what they deal with is appearance. It does make sense. Everything that I've gotten from all those members has to do with power lines and appearance and beautification and streetscapes. Makes sense to me to empower them on that side. Trees fall within it, but I think originally it started off as more trying to build up our canopy, which, we're well over 10,000 trees or whatever it is, so.
Okay, so we can certainly initiate an ordinance change to do that.
Number 4 is covered, right?
Yes, sir. Number 5, you all, this is really just to effectuate what has already been done. The advisory committee on equality, you already really sunset that and given them a task to implement that study that had been done previously.
CRC, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Question. It was either the Downtown Neighborhood Coalition or one of them had sent out a memo saying, and I couldn't find it online, so maybe y'all have a better outlook, that these committees we just had lined out on our website, but I couldn't find it, but they kept bringing it up because they're like, well, why did they get, why did it get taken off and why did it have a line through it? But I never saw it.
Yeah, I don't.
So they're not getting it from our website, they're getting it from our internal docs. All right, well, that's what they were sending that apparently around all over town. Okay.
How are they getting our internal docs?
Well, when you get the details.
Oh, okay.
Was on what now, Joy?
On the website.
It's on the website, on the council committee assignment page. It's on there.
So the question Ms. Marks had of you, Erica, was what?
I assumed that it was a result of the committees that we sunsetted. Their minutes and their meeting agendas are still online, but the actual committee is not showing up in the web portal. But it sounds like Joe is saying that it's on the city's webpage.
I mean, yeah, like the ACE is still up on the,
Is it still there, Joy?
if you go to, city council and then special committees, you have all of these are, and the committees haven't been updated with the new committee names that we created.
So the equity committee is still there?
Yeah.
Is it? It is?
And economic and community development committee should be split up.
Okay, so we'll check, we'll get with PR and we'll do the website updates. And also any changes that we are discussing during this meeting as well.
All right. Number 6 is still being debated.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, what are we gonna do with tax modernization?
Oh, I'm sorry. We got the
man.
report submitted to us, and now we're moving forward as council, as a city as a whole with a thing. But I mean, I don't think, the only thing I would, if anybody asks,
Yeah, we
I guess
just
you
saw
would just
that on
come and
there.
appear
Thank
as
you,
a
Dr.
former
Bussells.
committee member.
Like that?
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, I think it's fine to sunset that.
For some reason, it's crossed out. And that's the other thing, like, the boards and commissions are listed 10 different ways on the website. That needs to be cleaned up. Yeah, and it makes it look like Environment and Infrastructure Committee has just been crossed out.
I'm sorry. Yawning like crazy.
Right, but I mean, this page should just have our, current appointments in the new, committees.
I think what occurred is they linked it back to Minute Track, and I took the boards out of Minute Track, and so what it is a broken link. And so I'll get with PR and ask them to update the entire page. I didn't know that that page was linked to Minute Track.
That's helpful. And then that page is also different from the special committees drop-down page.
Okay.
Some of it has the same information. Yeah, it's just,
Maybe just easier to point everyone to the web portal, because that's where
Yes.
I update the information.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this, Erica.
Which is separate from what Ashley manages, so.
So you're gonna take care of the web page.
I will work with PR to make sure that the pages are updated as soon
sent
as
to both
possible.
you too, I texted them to you, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, thank you.
This is a
Now,
good
do we do that?
exercise, because you gotta realize how these things are linked and
Now,
all
some
that,
of
so
these
it's
things
helpful.
will be updated when we perfect the document, or do we do the updating now?
Now, these are our council committees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can update those council committees and some of that stuff that's on the website. We can go ahead and
Can we
do
do
that.
that?
Yes, sir. We'll take care of that in short order.
So, Ms. Hampton, you're gonna take care of that. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Benjamin?
So, 8 and 9 were what we kind of were back to talking about those things. And we had talked about January 2024 to give us some time to kind of wind down some of that, to begin the rotating off of current members who have served more than 2 years years unless the council member has an upcoming leadership position. And that was for you all, Reverend McDowell, that was for you, council members?
Yes, ma'am.
It was your rotation, so you'll just need to let us know if you all are good with
Purpose
those.
is try to get more people involved.
Yes,
Correct,
more
yeah.
council members.
More
More
council
council
members.
members
So it's not the
involved.
same person on the tourism board and everything, yeah. Oh, y'all can't give me a candy cane? Y'all can't get me a candy cane? Damn.
Put extra on our table.
No, that's yours, that's yours.
I didn't have it.
Number 10 was appointees can only serve on one committee at a time, with the exception of the appeals board. Again, that was to get more participation from
That's correct.
citizens, so we will be making sure that we cross-reference our
All the
candidates,
rules of kindergarten.
our
Something you don't have enough room.
Exactly.
board members now, and make sure we get that all buttoned up.
So I think we're good on number 8. Mayor, are you good with the rotation method?
I like that idea, actually.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, that's what we initially talked about. And if you're good with that, we're good with that.
I actually think it's a great idea. I don't know why we hadn't done that before, because it would be great to get people more familiarized, especially, you know, with all the stuff going on at the COG and right now, the comment and other things.
And so, like, the COG is a great example. I think Councilman Brennan's the chair or something for that, so he would get to, this would not apply to him.
Right, he would get to be the chair. So that's why that language was like that. Number 9, the appointee, no appointee can serve on the same committee for another jurisdiction while serving on a city board or commission. That's hospitality. So we would certainly have to figure out when we want to make that change, and if you guys want to make that change.
We definitely, I think, want to make that change.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, do you want it where no appointee can serve? Like, do we really want somebody serving at the city and serving at the county?
I
Not
mean-
on the same committee, but on,
Oh, just in general.
in general. I mean,
Is there a way to
was there
track
discussion
that?
about that, or was it just really focused trying to make sure that there weren't conflict of just a single?
Right, there was just talking about the conflict of the single. You know, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but sometimes it's, you know, to be collaborative, it might be good that somebody is on our committee that's similar to a committee on the county, so they can kind of share, cross-pollinate some ideas. I think that may have been something that was thought of as a good thing prior. But, you know, you guys, y'all let us know what you want to do.
Understand the background.
Yeah, I think that was the case, where they were saying it made sense for somebody to be on both the counties and the cities if they were talking about, if it was dealing with a similar issue.
Right.
So someone was there to share perspective and someone see, you know, how it affects both of
Right.
jurisdictions, but, you know, it hasn't really been an issue before,
Except for hospitality, right?
except for, yeah, I mean, that's,
Is there anything to consider in terms of, like, you know how they take an oath of office and you can't hold 2 offices per state constitution? Is there any conflict there?
not that I'm aware of for, you know, a board and commission.
Is it an office
but-
or a committee?
I think they take an oath of office, or whatever it's called. What is it called? Oath of,
Yeah, in here, in ours, but I don't know that it's to the extent,
that,
Where they-
like, an elected office would
yeah,
be.
I don't know. I don't mean to say it, but I don't know if it's that serious.
That's fine. I mean, I think I think that we start with the same committee, and if there's an issue, yeah.
Okay, so,
And then in terms of your question about when it should go into effect, I think we need to bless and release, once council has, at the end of February. The same time when that 2023 no ex officio or non-voting members goes into effect, this should go into effect as well. And maybe we add that. I don't know if that's in this, Is it?
It's not, and that's one of the things that Ashley and I talked about is, drawing that line in the sand where there's some date that we changed. Because everybody will be here, 5 years from now going, now, when did we change that? Now, what did we change? So we can certainly add effective,
March 1st.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we could, and Ashley, I think we can put at the bottom here, last updated too.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That will be great. Because that will give it some time stamp. Okay. 11 sounds weird. Establish a standard 4-year term for boards and commissions without term limits. Appointees can serve up to 2 terms. That's a little contradictory. So I think the only one we have that, and Ashley was making me aware of that, was the advisory committee for CPD. They don't have any term limits. That's the only one that doesn't have term limits for that committee. So we can just establish that it's 2 terms, figure out how to,
I thought we already had established that you couldn't serve more than 2 terms on any committee.
well, that was something that we had added to the handbook, to our handbook language, but
That ordinance way back in like 2006, 7, or 8.
I don't think we did it for all of for some of these advisory boards. We didn't do it for those.
All boards and commissions.
Well, I think,
Yeah, and it was everything I thought, so. or
okay,
I guess
we'll check that. And Ashley was just remembering, you're right, Mayor, and then that's what led to the ex officio and the other ones, because they didn't want, right, because they want those people to be off completely because their terms had ended. So you're absolutely right. So we'll just, I guess we don't need, honestly, we don't really need this. We can take this off, but we do need to, yeah.
I didn't know if we needed to update it, but I thought we.
No, you're right. We did. We established that already. So, but we'll have to reach out to the Citizens Advisory and let them, I'm not sure how we'll do that, but we'll figure that out.
Absolutely, had already previously been in their bylaws, but you couldn't go change your bylaws to change it.
That's right. That's right. Number 12, we really have already talked about that. And
Yeah, we've done that.
13. Now, 11, we do need to look at which of these committees have more than 11 members, because we do have a few. Food policy is one that has a lot more than 11. BPAC has more than 11, I think.
Appoint the 9 vacancies.
'Cause they,
How many folk are on BPAC now?
There's 8, but they have 9 vacancies. So if council were to decide to fill the 9, it would put them at 17.
That's like not an effective, that's way too
And
big.
then CPAC
CPAC as
has
well.
9 currently, but if we filled their 3 voting and their 3, well, non-voting doesn't matter. But if we filled the 3 voting, then they would be over the 11 as well.
What about food policy?
Food policy is at 10.
But didn't they have some?
They have 3 vacancies, but really it's 2 reappointments and 1 vacancy. And that's part of, we've been working to curtail their membership anyway.
Right.
It was how many folk in the beginning?
When it was first established, it used to be like 17 and then upwards of a little bit more than that, and that was a few years ago.
I'm fine with the 11. I think that's a good number. And and if people want to do it later, that's, applicants in the pipeline that can apply for the next time there's a vacancy.
Additionally, there was Affordable Housing Task Force. I know that was on the list of potentially like sunsetting. That committee, it was mentioned, but that's another committee that has about 20 from what I counted.
So we'll have to talk to Councilwoman Herbert. And they're not meeting as a committee anymore. They're meeting in subcommittees of like
Right.
6 or 7 people.
Okay.
Right.
So okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she was talking about those things and some other things. And we certainly can look at the 11 limit when we're talking about which vacancies we are advertising for. Because like she said, you know, the committees that have 9 vacancies, you know, we don't fill those vacancies. We just keep everybody at 11. So we'll look through
Well, the
that.
original intent was to make sure that we did some streamlining
Yes, sir.
and that we stuck right with the 11.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's a decision that we need to discuss with each council person, or with the council. Because I think 11 is gonna be, I think that's the magic number right now. And I think anything over than that becomes perfunctory.
Yes, sir. So.
Not gonna do what not gonna do what it's intended to do.
So we'll have, we'll update the handbook, have those suggestions that you all made, and then we'll have a list of those things that you guys need council to be aware of.
So with those future committees, do you go ahead and give them notice now and then it's a full policy come July 1,
I think we had said March 1.
March 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we give notice. I mean, a lot of them already have vacancies anyway that haven't been filled, and so we just will let them know we won't fill their vacancies, and then their number will be capped at 11.
But that certainly helps us in the management.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
It does.
it really does. Okay.
So those are all the items that we had from the prior minutes. I don't know if anybody had any other suggestions. This has been extremely helpful to know what's, you know, how we need to clean up the website, how we need to update this document, and then those list of things that we need to have, make council aware of. So we will be prepared, Dr. Bussells, in February to have these documents ready for you all. And then you all will be able to disseminate them to the rest of council, and then we
We're
can
gonna do.
put stuff in place in
We're going
March.
to look at them first.
Yes, sir. We'll have that for you in February.
Okay.
Yes.
And the goal is that by the second council meeting, we can,
At least bring a document forward.
yeah, you don't have to vote on this, do you?
I
It's
would,
just consensus from the,
is it consensus, Erica? It would seem to me that we have to vote on it.
okay, I mean, I think it's fine if, you know, we put it as part of materials for the meeting and had people vote on it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
TK, you're saying vote in this committee to move it to the full council, and then vote again in the full council, Ms. Erica? Oh, okay.
Oh, then let's do that.
So
Let's
we-
just do a
Yeah.
resolution
That-
for,
Okay.
yeah, let's do that.
for the second meeting in February.
Okay.
Great.
Are there any other questions?
So we will send you all these, we'll send it electronic as soon as we get it done, so you can have it, and then we'll have the copies. You know, we'll do it like we did this prior one, so you have it before the meeting.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Well, Ms. Erica, let me just say a word. Thank you all. Our staff has really done what you were asked to do, and we are appreciative for that. Thank you all so much. Let's go ahead and perfect this document and be done with it. Thank y'all. Move for adjournment.
Second.
So molded be. Thank you.